It's 200:00 a.m. And you have the most expensive, state-of-the-art MRI machine money can buy just sitting in the next room.
Right. A literal marvel of modern physics.
Exactly. It can see inside the human body with breathtaking clarity. And yet your night shift is currently delayed by an entire hour. Why? Because a radiographer is, trying to track down a lab result on a frozen computer screen while simultaneously fielding a phone call from the emergency room.
Yeah, it's a very familiar scene.
If you are a clinical leader listening to this, maybe a department director, a radiologist, or a radiographer out there on the ground, you know this chaos intimately. You see the spreadsheets, you sign off on these massive capital expenditure budgets, and you've watched millions of dollars get poured into cutting-edge imaging hardware.
Oh, absolutely. Millions.
But when you actually walk out onto the floor, the department doesn't feel cutting edge at all. It feels like you are constantly just putting out fires.
It is one of the most profound paradoxes in modern healthcare today. The hardware inside these imaging suites is practically science fiction at this point, but the human experience of operating the department is grindingly primitive.
Grindingly primitive. That is such a good way to put it.
Right. It's highly reactive, incredibly stressful, and quite frankly, it just exhausts everyone involved. We're basically demanding that highly trained clinical professionals act like air traffic controllers in a storm, and they're doing it using Post-it notes and phone calls.
Which brings us directly to the mission for today's deep dive. We are exploring a remarkable blueprint drawn from a source document called H-CREM 2.0, the Operational Maestro.
A fascinating read.
It really is. The goal here is to figure out how to actually transform modern medical imaging departments into genuinely future-ready environments. And the central theme of this document is a complete fundamental paradigm shift.
Yeah, the evolution of radiology operations is no longer about simply installing technology. We are way, way past that.
Right. The true evolution is about conducting performance, just like an orchestra maestro.
Exactly. And that metaphor of the maestro, it's the lens through which we really have to view everything we discussed today. Because think about what a maestro actually does.
They don't play the instruments.
Right. A maestro doesn't play the cello. They don't, blow into the oboe. They coordinate the musicians. They ensure every single section of the orchestra comes in at the exact right millisecond to create harmony.
Yeah.
If you don't have a conductor, it really doesn't matter if you have a stage full of the greatest virtuosos in the world. You don't get a symphony.
You just get a wall of isolated noise.
Precisely. And that is exactly what is missing in modern radiology operations.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we talk about bringing a conductor onto the podium, let's look at why the current orchestra is failing so spectacularly. The source material points to something it calls the visibility void. And to understand this, we have to look at the massive software systems already in place. Things like your RIS and your PASSINs. Now, we all know these systems are incredible at what they do.
Oh, for sure.
But what they do is store data. They're just repositories.
Yeah, they exist in what the document calls static silos. They just sit there holding vital patient information, but they don't actually conduct action.
Right.
They wait passively for a human being to come along, log in, and interact with them.
It's like having a stage full of those world-class virtuosos, a brilliant cellist, an amazing first-chair violinist, but putting them all into separate soundproof booths.
That is exactly it.
The instruments are there, the talent is absolutely undeniable, but without a conductor, it's just noise. The music can't come together.
And because that information is just sitting idle in those soundproof booths, the clinical staff are forced to become the manual data bridges between systems.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It is. Your radiographers, your nurses, your desk staff, they're the ones running back and forth, either physically down the hall or digitally across different screens. They have to constantly chase updates.
Like, has the patient arrived at the front desk?
Right. Or are the creatinine labs cleared for contrast? Is the CT scanner actually open and ready? The technology isn't pushing this information to them in a synchronized way at all. They are pulling it out manually, piece by agonizing piece.
Which creates what the document refers to as the fragmentation problem. We are essentially using highly paid, highly trained medical professionals as, human API connections.
That is the perfect way to describe it. Human APIs. And this isn't just an IT nuisance. This is a catastrophic breakdown of clinical workflow.
Yeah.
When humans act as the glue between static software systems, the immediate result is severe cognitive load. The source document points out that radiographers on the floor are managing hundreds of micro-decision points per shift. Hundreds. check this screen, call that ward, refresh that queue, page that doctor. It completely exhausts the mental bandwidth that they desperately need to dedicate to actual patient care.
Wow. And plus, alongside that cognitive overload, they are just getting hit with constant, contextless alerts.
Oh, the alerts are endless.
Which leads to a terrifying phenomenon called alarm blindness. When every single machine is beeping and every alert sounds exactly the same, well, nothing is urgent. Critical safety signals just become background noise.
Right, because the human brain is remarkably adaptive. When it is completely overwhelmed by sensory input, it learns to tune things out just to protect its own sanity and maintain focus.
It has to, just to survive the shift.
Exactly. But in a radiology department, when you tune out the noise, critical safety signals go unheard, and that is where clinical risk absolutely skyrockets.
So we have this systemic structural problem. But let's translate this into the immediate physical reality of the frontline staff. What actually happens when this fragmented system breaks down under pressure?
It gets ugly fast.
The document highlights a very specific metric regarding operational inefficiency, which is 120 seconds lost per patient loop.
Yes, the 120 seconds.
Well, wait, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
120 seconds. Because I look at spreadsheets and operational metrics all day, and 2 minutes lost per patient does not sound like a catastrophe. It sounds like a rounding error. I mean, I probably lose 2 minutes a day just looking for my coffee mug. Why are we panicking over 2 minutes?
I get that a lot. 2 minutes absolutely sounds negligible in isolation. But hospital operations are not isolated events. They are highly interconnected, compounding chains of events.
Okay, fair.
To understand why those 2 minutes are so dangerous, the source introduces a concept called the 2.0 AM gap. This is the ultimate test of a department's fragility.
The 2.0 AM gap.
Right. At 2.0 in the afternoon, if you lose 2 minutes trying to manually coordinate a patient transfer from the ward, you have a robust staff, you have a buffer. Other people can step in and absorb that inefficiency. But at 2 a.m.
You have a skeleton crew.
Exactly. You are operating during high-stress, thinly staffed hours. There is zero buffer.
So a rounding error suddenly becomes a structural failure.
Let's walk through what actually happens at 2.0 a.m. A stroke patient comes into the ER. Time is brain, right?
Right, every second counts.
The radiographer loses 2 minutes figuring out if the ER has actually prepped the patient for the CT. Then they lose another 2 minutes trying to reach the on-call radiologist to confirm the protocol.
And then
they lose another 2 minutes logging into a completely different siloed system just to verify a recent lab result.
So that's 6 minutes completely gone.
Gone. And because there is no buffer, the next patient in the queue is now delayed. The porter waiting to transport the patient is standing idle. The ER bed cannot be cleared for the next incoming ambulance.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, those lost seconds compound immediately, translating into hours of department-wide delays. At 2.0 a.m., resilience is purely reactive. The staff is literally just surviving the shift, relying entirely on their own adrenaline to bridge those manual gaps.
It's just heroic human effort compensating for bad systemic design.
Right.
Which is fundamentally unsustainable. I mean, you can't run a healthcare facility on adrenaline and luck.
You really can't. It is highly dangerous. You are asking exhausted people working in the middle of the night to flawlessly manually coordinate a dozen moving parts, all while also providing empathetic, highly technical patient care.
Here's where the solution comes in, and this is really the core of the document's blueprint. Obviously, human staff can no longer serve as these manual data bridges to fix that 2.0 AM gap. We need a new structural approach.
We do.
Enter H-CREM 2.0. But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's clarify something crucial for the listeners who might be envisioning, a massive multi-million-dollar IT overhaul. We aren't ripping out the existing RIS or PACS systems to install this, right?
Oh, not at all.
So how does this actually move a department from just receiving raw signals to generating actual motion? And how does it do that without just adding yet another screen for an exhausted radiographer to stare at?
That is the genius of the Maestro paradigm. H-CREM 2.0 is defined as the conductive intelligence layer. It doesn't replace your RIS. It doesn't replace your PACS.
Okay.
It sits directly above the existing technology stack.
It's the conductor stepping onto the podium looking at the orchestra.
Exactly. It listens to the department's digital exhaust, which is a great term for the invisible data trailing behind every single action.
Digital exhaust. I like that.
We are talking about things like HL7 and FHIR triggers. Simply put, HL7 and FHIR are the raw languages your hospital's various software systems use to whisper to each other in the background.
Right, the coding languages.
Yeah. A patient is checked in at the front desk. That's a trigger. A scanner finishes its cycle. That's a modality status feed. Usually, these raw data signals just fire off into the void and they don't actually talk to each other. H-CREM captures that digital exhaust and normalizes it into a single, unified operational brain.
So it's taking the raw data from all those separate soundproof booths we talked about, opening the doors and interpreting what everyone is playing.
That's it. It translates raw signals into actionable operational context. It ensures that every single signal ends in accountability.
How does that look in practice?
Think about the radiographer we mentioned earlier. Instead of that radiographer having to physically check a screen, refresh a queue, and then call the front desk to see if a patient has arrived, the intelligence layer just knows the patient has arrived.
Oh, wow.
It knows the patient's labs are cleared. It knows the CT scanner is currently open. And because it knows all three of those things simultaneously, it actively directs the workflow. It pings the porter to move the patient. It moves the whole department from fragmented guessing to evidence-based execution.
There is a phenomenal quote in the source material from Fatima Hassan Mohammed, who is a clinical excellence architect. She states plainly, and I love this, radiology doesn't need more tech. It needs a system that makes the existing tech work together.
Yeah, that single sentence completely redefines the problem facing modern clinical leaders today. Hospital executives are constantly pitched these software solutions that require ripping and replacing their entire infrastructure, which takes years and costs millions.
It causes endless headaches.
Absolutely. Fatima Hassan Mohammed is pointing out that the instruments you already bought are actually fine. You just need an intelligence layer to interpret the signals so the human beings can go back to doing their actual jobs, which is caring for patients.
Let's talk about the reality of those human jobs then. Because a big part of surviving a clinical shift is adapting to the rhythm of the hospital. A great orchestral conductor doesn't just set a metronome at one speed, turn their back, and walk away.
No, they don't.
They don't keep the exact same tempo for an entire hour-long symphony. They adapt to the demands of the movement. Sometimes it's fast and chaotic, sometimes it's slow and methodical. So how does this operational brain adapt to the incredibly volatile reality of a 2047 hospital environment?
It does this through a mechanism the document calls adaptive intelligence. The system is constantly tuning itself to the floor's tempo. And a major component of this is something termed frontline shielding.
Frontline shielding.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal here is to reduce the screen time tax.
The screen time tax. I love that phrasing because it perfectly captures what it actually feels like on the floor. Every minute you spend clicking through drop-down menus is a tax levied against the time you could be spending looking a patient in the eye.
Exactly. By automating the administrative coordination, by having the system quietly check the labs, verify the arrival, and signal the porter, you are drastically reducing the amount of time clinical staff spend staring at monitors.
You're giving them their time back.
You really are. And to manage the hospital's shifting rhythm, H-CREM operates in two distinct modes. The first is day mode, which the document refers to as peak flow mode.
Right. So day mode is when the hospital is absolutely humming. It's the middle of the afternoon, the outpatient waiting room is totally full, the ER is busy.
Yeah.
The intelligence layer essentially acts like a bustling air traffic control tower.
Yes.
It's maximizing efficiency, orchestrating a dozen different flights landing and taking off all at once.
And it takes that air traffic control role very seriously. In day mode, the system deploys full-scale operational intelligence. It focuses heavily on real-time staff deployment, throughput monitoring, and dynamic optimization for peak demand.
So it's actively managing the chaos.
Right. If one scanner goes down for maintenance, the system is actively moving pieces around the board, rerouting patients to other available modalities to keep the flow as efficient as possible. But as the sun goes down and the tempo changes, the system adapts. It shifts into after-hours mode.
Sticking with the analogy, if day mode is the air traffic control tower constantly barking orders to maximize throughput, after-hours mode is like a quiet radar.
A quiet radar, exactly.
It stays completely out of your way and only sounds the alarm if there's a genuine emergency.
After-hours mode provides minimalist, low-burden surveillance. Think back to that fragile 2.0 a.m. gap we discussed. The night shift staff is already stretched incredibly thin. The absolute last thing they need is a computer system pinging them about minor throughput optimizations or workflow tweaks.
Right. They don't care about a 3% efficiency gain at 3.0 a.m.
No, they just want to keep patients safe. So the system engages in passive monitoring. It watches the digital exhaust quietly in the background, and it only interrupts the staff for high-priority safety events and critical results.
It proactively identifies severe bottlenecks or safety risks before they escalate into clinical incidents, without overwhelming the night shift with notification fatigue.
Yes. But, this adaptive automation raises an important question. If we have a system that stays quiet at night and hums during the day, we solve the burnout problem. But if the system is doing all the heavy lifting of coordination, mostly out of sight, how do we know it isn't making mistakes? When you shield the frontline staff from the screen time tax, how do you handle strict clinical governance?
So what does this all mean for safety? Which brings us to the ultimate mandate of any hospital: zero harm patient care. We've solved the efficiency problem, we've addressed the cognitive load, but how does this conductor ensure we are actually keeping patients safe and meeting those incredibly strict international governance standards?
Well, the source material is very explicit about this. It refers to this structural approach as safety as an anchor.
Safety as an anchor.
Yeah. Safety isn't treated as an optional add-on or a checklist you fill out at the end of the shift. It is the ultimate byproduct of the entire Maestro paradigm. H-CREM embeds international patient safety goals, often referred to as IPSG, directly into the daily hardwired workflow.
It makes it mechanically impossible to bypass them.
Exactly.
Let's ground that in reality for a second. Give me a concrete example of how that actually works mechanistically on the floor without forcing the radiographer to do more work. Let's start with IPSG-1, which is patient identification.
Sure. So IPSG-1 mandates that you must accurately identify the patient before any procedure. Historically, this meant a human checking a wristband against a printed sheet of paper.
Which is super prone to human error.
Highly prone. Under H-CREM, the system performs automated identification checks across every single care transition. Mechanistically, the intelligence layer automatically cross-references the patient's wristband barcode scan from the electronic health record with the active modality work list in the RIS in real time.
So it's instantly comparing the data from two different silos.
Yes.
Right.
And if the digital exhaust doesn't perfectly align, if the patient ID from the wristband scan doesn't match the specific scan queued up on the MRI machine, the system instantly intervenes. It literally won't let the workflow proceed. It removes the reliance on human memory or manual cross-referencing to ensure you have the right scan for the right patient every single time.
Okay, what about IPSG-2? Because that goal focuses on effective communication, specifically regarding critical results.
IPSG-2 is notoriously difficult to manage in a fragmented system. Let's say it's 3.0 a.m. A radiologist looks at a chest x-ray and flags a critical finding, like a collapsed lung.
Okay.
They type a message into the PAS-CS or send an alert. But how do you guarantee the ER physician actually sees it in the chaos of the emergency room?
You usually can't.
Right. But with H-CREM, there is standardized critical result escalation with guaranteed receipt acknowledgement. The intelligence layer tracks that critical finding like a hawk. It monitors the digital exhaust until the loop is explicitly closed.
Meaning the system verifies that the responsible clinician has actually opened and acknowledged the alert.
Yes, and if they don't, the system automatically escalates it to the next level of command.
Wow. And for the clinical leaders listening, you know that audit readiness is usually a polite term for a month of absolute panic.
Oh, complete panic.
It's a mad scramble of paperwork, copious amounts of bad coffee, pulling files from dusty cabinets, and just praying your manual logs are up to date before the inspectors arrive. But this intelligent layer flips that script entirely.
It completely eliminates the panic. Because the intelligence layer is managing the workflow and tracking every single digital trigger to ensure those IPSG goals are met, it is performing constant passive logging.
Oh, I see.
It's creating an immutable, perfectly accurate record of 247 compliance with standards like the Joint Commission International or JCI.
So international audit readiness just becomes a natural, effortless byproduct of daily clinical operations. You don't have to spend a month preparing for an audit because the way you do the work on a Tuesday afternoon is the audit. The proof is baked right into the workflow itself.
Exactly. You aren't taking extra steps to log safety compliance. The system logs it automatically because the system orchestrated the safe action in the first place.
That's incredible.
This is what it truly means to orchestrate harmony between cutting-edge technology, strict clinical governance, and human execution.
It's a brilliant structural solution to a problem that has plagued hospital administration for decades. So to briefly recap what we've unpacked today, we started with the chaotic reality of the visibility void. We explored how billions of dollars are spent on static silos like RS and PAS-CS that store valuable data but utterly fail to conduct action.
Right.
And we looked closely at the human cost. the immense cognitive load of the screen time tax, and that incredibly dangerous 2.0 AM gap, where a mere 120 lost seconds spiral into systemic failure because the human buffer is totally gone.
And the transformational solution we found in the H-CREM 2.0 blueprint isn't to just buy another multi-million-dollar scanner or install another standalone software system.
Yeah.
It is to introduce a conductive intelligence layer. By capturing the digital exhaust and using adaptive modes from the high-efficiency peak flow of the day to the minimalist, quiet surveillance of the night, we actively protect the clinical frontline.
We shield them from administrative burnout so they can actually focus on what they train to do, which is care for the patient.
Exactly.
And as a beautiful structural byproduct, safety and compliance are anchored into every single action. True transformation isn't found in a new piece of hardware. It's in the intelligence that orchestrates the workflow.
It is about letting the instruments do what they were built to do under the guidance of a unified, intelligent vision.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. If you are a department director or a clinical leader, and intelligent systems like H-CREM 2.0 are now passively handling the tedious coordination, the strict compliance logging, and the throughput of your department, well, how will your role evolve?
That's the real question.
If you no longer have to spend your days managing the operational chaos and acting as the human glue between broken systems, what new frontiers of patient care, strategy, and clinical excellence will you finally have the freedom to explore?
It is a profound shift in what leadership can actually achieve when they aren't bogged down in survival mode.
It really is. The instruments are tuned. The musicians are ready. It's time to step up to the podium and